It's Monday night. Welcome to Monday Night Comics. Only on Comics with Dan.
Welcome to Monday Night Comics. I'm Dan, and this is Comics with Dan. Sorry I had to miss last week. One of my kids was sick, and I needed to make sure that I was, available to kind of help him out. But we are back here. I have quite a few books to talk about because it's been 2 weeks now since. Actually, it might even have been 3 weeks. I think since we last had one of these. And so I'm going to have, quite a few books to talk about. And plus, obviously the Christmas season, is upon us. So I have a handful of books here that I got for Christmas as well, which I'm really excited to share with you. The first thing you'll notice here is I've got the Batman and Superman mashup guy. I don't think they ever really gave him an official name. But my wife got me this, which I was very excited about. I don't do a lot of these, but this was a really cool one. I'd randomly added this to my list that she looks at, but pretty cool. So before we get into the top 10 books of 2024, I want to show you some of the things that I have received recently that I'm pretty excited about. The first one is this trade copy of Hexagon Bridge. Now, if you've been on my channel before, you know that I have spoken to Richard Blake a few times, twice in interviews, and then, I chat with him pretty regularly about, what he's working on, that sort of thing. And so in our last chat, off the interview, he had mentioned that there were a few extra pages that were not in the single issues, some extra art pages that weren't there in the original single issues. So in the trade, and so I hadn't gotten the trade because I pulled the single issues whenever I got them, and so he said he would send me a copy of the trade. Which was super nice of him, and he even signed the inside of it, which is always really cool. This is one of my favorite books in my collection, I think, because of the meaning behind it. I mean, Rich has been so great to come on the channel a few times, and it's gorgeous to look at too. I mean, if you haven't read Hexagon Bridge yet, then definitely pick up the trade. Like I said, there's some extra art pages in the back. We have, some storyboards, which is pretty interesting if you think about it, because Rich, in our last interview, well, actually in the first interview, told me that he started out by doing storyboards. So his storyboards are pretty incredible. So not just little sketches that he uses to plot things out. They're pretty well fleshed out pieces. So I also got from my wife, she got me a Murder on the Orient Express graphic novel adaptation. This is really cool. We both really like Agatha Christie. I don't read a ton of regular novels. I'll read one occasionally, but I have read a couple Agatha Christie books and watched movies, TV shows. We played a game for the Xbox that was really good. But we both really like Agatha Christie, and this looks great. The obviously the writing is Agatha Christie, but it was adapted and illustrated by Bob Al Green, And if you look at like the interiors here, it's I mean, the art style to me really captures the look of um that 60s movie, the movie that came out in the 60s for Murder on the Orient Express. Um and so I like it so far. You can see I've got a bookmark in it. I've started it. I like it so far, and it I haven't read the regular novel, so I can't say that it's true to the original novel, but it seems pretty true to the 60s movie. It's nothing like the Kenneth Branagh version, which is okay with me. I like the movie, but um, I I'll leave it at that. But it the 60s movie, to my understanding, is seen as a good adaptation of the book, and this seems to be following that movie from what I can tell. So I have to imagine it's following the book pretty well. So I also, from my wife, got volume 3 of Sonic the Hedgehog, the IDW collection. Um, the my We got my son we got him volume 1 for his birthday last year, and then we got this year for Christmas we got him volume 2. So then my wife got me volume 3, so now we've got a ton of Sonic to catch up on. And then it's funny because when we've been getting these for my son, I constantly am talking about how just gorgeous and well put together these books are, and they really are. I mean, they're just these really nice hardcovers. The reading order in these is fantastic. It doesn't just slap some issues in there. It puts the correct reading order in, and so like in volume 2, they include the Tangle and Whisper um, miniseries in the book and in the order that you would read it. So it goes like 13, 14, 15, 16, 2019 annual, Tangle and Whisper, and then whatever it goes to after that. I think it goes up to issue 20, right? So just really well put together. And so I've realized that some of the art books and some other books, even from like DC and Marvel, I believe, IDW publishes those. And I can kind of see why, because it seems like they're just really good at putting together these collected editions. I mean, I mean, it's got like the nice tassel in it and everything. It's fantastic to look at. I mean, it's not to mention the fact that Ian Flynn, I feel like he can't miss with this Sonic series. I mean, he's so good. But so yeah, now I'm really excited to get to that one. My boys and I are probably about halfway through volume 2, so we'll be doing that one next, and then probably tracking down the volume 4 with Dr. Eggman on the front of it. So really excited about that one. Yeah, that was really good. That's a really good one. Now, I also have here something I was really excited to receive from my father-in-law. I've got a few things in here. Golf balls. But more so than the golf balls, my father-in-law actually gave me his old comics, and he wasn't some huge collector or anything like that. And there's nothing in here worth thousands or even hundreds of dollars, but just the thought of having these books passed down is just really cool. And like a lot of these books are just cool books to own. I mean, like here I've got Thor 361. Like that's a Walt Simonson. That's a Walt Simonson book. I mean, he wrote and illustrated this, and so just a really cool book to have in my collection. And yeah, I mean, there's lots of cool stuff in here. So like we have Thor, there's the Incredible Hulk 313, That's another one. I mean, this one is Mike Mignola. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, this is classic. I mean, like the 80s are like the best time for comic books anyway. So, I mean, he even has, we've got an issue of ElfQuest here, right? I mean, I've never seen one of these in person. I, I mean, these are, I'm sure that there are places where they're, you know, more common than others. But I've never seen one. And I know they're like starting to collect these books into collected editions now, but still just really cool to see that. And then there's a lot of, and I'll pull all these ones out. Also, and I'm going to cover up the label here, but he even gave me the little sleeves that they came in when he would get them in the mail, which is cool. So there's a lot of Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, which is pretty cool. I don't own a lot of Spider-Man. These are Roger Stern written, Marie Severin pencils, Bruce Patterson inks, Rick Parker letter, Ben Sean colorist. And I just noticed Danny O'Neill's the editor. That's kind of funny. So yeah, and so then we have I mean the classic black suit Spider-Man. I mean, just really cool. And so I mean, this is 108, right? But most of the ones that he gave me were in the 40s number wise, not in year. Yeah, I mean, so there's another one. We got the Toys R Us shopping spree. I'm going to see if I can win that Toys R Us shopping spree. I don't know if Toys R Us is still a thing. Pretty sure they still exist, like inside Macy's or something. But some of these covers are just fantastic. Like, look at that. That's a classic cover. I love that one. And they're just so cool. And then we were talking about this, like the cool ads in the back of these. $3 for 132 Roman soldiers. That's a deal. And this is when I use this in the intro. Somebody is killing them all. That old Parker luck. Yeah, I mean, I think that one of these is the first appearance of Ben Kingsley, the Hobgoblin. I don't know the exact context of it. Look at that. That's a sweet Vulture one. Spidey's all chained up. But I don't know the exact context of the first appearance of Ben Kingsley, whether or not he showed up before as Hobgoblin and this is just him or whatever, however it works. But that's at least what the what League of Comic Geeks has as his first appearance. And again, I'm not even sure which one it is, but we got more Spectacular Spider-Man, and this one's got Statue of Liberty and the Human Torch on the front of it. It's fantastic. And that was not an intentional pun. I did not mean to call it fantastic with a member of the Fantastic Four. I promise. Another really great cover here. More Spectacular Spider-Man. And we also got Secret Wars 2, which is pretty cool. And one really cool one is this Star Wars number 100 anniversary issue, which is pretty cool. My kids are just getting into Star Wars, so I might have to read this one with them. So, yeah, and all the ads in these are so cool too. I mean, you look at, we've got this, was it Nesquik, I think? Yeah. Nestle Quick is what it's called in this. I think that eventually became Nesquik, but either way. But it's just that these are already some of my favorite books in my collection because, you know, just because of the thought behind it, right? You know, my father-in-law gave me these because, and he said he wanted to give them to someone he knew would appreciate them, and to be thought of as someone who would appreciate, you know, these books, I'm very flattered by that. So now I believe we can move on to our top 10 books of 2024. So I think that so I recently did a video, a quick video for Near Mint Condition, and so you might already know what my number one pick of the year is, which is fine. But go check that video out. It's a really cool video. It's 2 hours and 14 minutes long, and it's all these different comic YouTubers talking about the best thing they read in 2024. It's a really cool video. There's tons of people that participated in it. So it's just cool. Yeah, it's really well done. I love the guys over at Near Mint Condition, Omar, Dom, Taylor. Just really, really good stuff over there. So make sure you check that out. Let me make sure I get the setup right here. Yeah, we'll do it like this. I think I like that best. Or maybe, yeah, I like that. I'll move this over. Like that. All right, I think we're set. So coming in at number 10 is Kosher Mafia. Now, so just real quick though, some qualifications for things that get how things get picked. The series had to start in 2024, and a substantial enough portion of it had to be in 2024. So I'm probably a little would be a little looser with the first part of that. So like if something started in December of 23 and the next 5 issues were in 24, then I could count that. But if something I just read the first issue in December, then I'm not counting that as something from 2024. So Kosher Mafia is a series from Mad Cave, and it started in July. Let me get the whole series up here. Yeah, series. All right. And so it started in July, and it's a 5-issue series. Now, I'm only in through issue number 3. I have not had a chance to read issue number 4. I'm very excited about it. But Kosher Mafia, it's a story about the Jewish mob in Cleveland, Ohio, and basically this bookkeeper for the Jewish mob finds out that basically the talk of the German Americans is creeping up, and so this guy Howard is trying to combat that, and he finds out that maybe the higher ups in the Kosher Nostra or the Kosher Mafia are maybe a little crooked, or maybe looking the other way because they don't want to ruffle feathers or whatever, right? And he's not having that. So this this enforcer in the Kosher Nostra teams up with him somewhat reluctantly, and they go on and are trying to put a stop to the German American Bund. So you see here, Howard Berkowitz, bookkeeper for Jewish mob, finds himself on the wrong end of an enforcer's gun. That's Ephraim Gold, who he ends up teaming up with. A little spoiler there. That happens in the first issue, though. So tries to stir them into action against the German American Bund, and for whatever reason, they are not. Well, not for whatever reason. I know the reason. But they don't want to take action against them. So extremely well written. I enjoy the art as well, but really the star here is David Hazan or David Hazan. He is the writer of this series, and just the way that he ties this particular story, and the way he ties this particular story into the story of the Jewish people as a whole is really fantastic. And so I I recall, I really liked the first issue, and the second issue was pretty good. But then issue number 3 blew me out of the water. It was just so well done. He ties it in just so perfectly. It's really great. And this this is me, praising this for uh, being the 10th book on my list, but um, that's where we are. Coming in at number 9, I have the way that I put my list together on this is that I put the first issue of the arc in case it was a specific arc, not an entire miniseries or whatever. Um, the Nightwing 119. This is the beginning of the Dan Watters run for this is the beginning of the Dan Watters run of Nightwing, the DC All In Nightwing book. We've had 119, 120, and 121 so far. I don't believe that 122 has come out yet. I think that's January. Yeah, because 119 is October, 120 is November, and 121 is December. This feels like going back to the Chuck Dixon days, except that I'm a much bigger fan of Dexter Soy than I am of Scott McDaniel, I think is his name. So Tom Taylor definitely had his strong points, both in his Nightwing run and in other books. One issue I had was, and I have with quite a few of his books, is just pacing. Is something I think he struggles with a bit. I still think he's a very good writer. I just think that there's a lot of issues with pacing, and then on top of that, some of the ways that he chooses to portray characters, it just feels. I mean, obviously, comics are inherently political. Art is inherently political, and you have to be willing to read or observe political art that might not be aligned with your politics, and that's fine. But I think that the way that Tom Taylor writes a lot of this, it comes across as just a bit more preachy and looking down on the reader almost. Um, I'm just I'm not a huge fan of that. I think I can kind of definitively say that now because this Nightwing run is political. I mean, they're right off the bat, we're talking corruption of police and militarization of police, right? And it's being written in a way that I don't feel like Dan Watters is trying to make me feel bad about how the police are behaving, but rather just showing kind of the problem and how Nightwing would deal with it. And then allowing readers to make their own decisions, and, you know, I think that's the best way to do it. Um, and we have the solicit right here. Bloodhaven's erupted in violence as rival gangs vie to fill the power vacuum left by Nightwing's cleanup of corrupt officials. And so we have gang wars trying to break out. Police have these super military weapons. Nightwing is compassionate and caring and still, sort of like a little hot-headed, but still mature from his Robin days. Um, really well written, really well written. The Dexter Soy art is fantastic. I mean, especially in this last issue, in 121. It's been very good. It's everything I could have hoped for. I'm very excited about this book and the direction that it's going in. Next, number 8 on the list is The Pedestrian. Now, I have been singing the praises of The Pedestrian all year. I was lucky enough to get review copies of this book from I had it on my pull list regardless, right? And I had it there, and I was excited because, I mean, like, it sounds like just this crazy concept, and it is a crazy concept. I mean, it's this speed walking superhero, right? And it looks goofy. I mean, that's all you really get when you first look at it, outside of the comic, and it's fun. But then I believe Joey Esposito posted on Twitter about if anyone wanted review copies, and so I reached out and said, yeah, like, definitely send me one. And he sent it to me, and I got to read it, and I was like blown away. Not only was it a ton of fun and just like goofy and great, but like, he managed to make like a heartfelt, like, superhero story in this, and it's so much more than just, you know, dumb fun. There is some dumb fun, but it's more than that. And so the rest of the issues didn't disappoint either. And so we got a 4-issue miniseries here. Sean Von Gorman on the art, Josh Jensen on colors, and Sean Lee doing the letters. They all worked so well together. I mean, it was just like an experience. Each time I'd check my Twitter DMs, and there would be a message from Joey that had the latest Pedestrian PDF. And so, and I still went out and bought the single issues anyway, just because not only did I want to support the book because I loved it, but I wanted to have them for my collection. It was a no-brainer. And then I got to meet Joey and Sean at Baltimore Comic Con. There's an interview with them on my channel. You should definitely check that out. But I got to meet them, and they signed my copy of The Pedestrian #1. But really, just, I mean, such a good combination of fun and, feeling and depth, and just really, really great. And there is going to be more. I don't have that confirmed, but based on the ending of this series, there has to be more, and the fans will demand it. So I'll be right on the front line demanding more Pedestrian 2, Electric Boogaloo. Next, number 7 on the list is volume. I believe the way that I did this. I'll just double check this. Give a little sneak peek at what else is on the list here. Yes. The first arc of Space Ghost is on the list here at number 7. So I was a really big fan of the DC series of Space Ghost that came out. That was written by Joe Kelly, who is, I believe, currently writing Amazing Spider-Man, and has written a ton of stuff. He wrote some Superman and everything. He wrote this 6-issue series, maybe 5 issues, 6 issues, something like that, in 2005 for DC, and I like stumbled across it on DC Universe, and I was just like, oh, I'll give it a try, whatever. And it ended up being like one of my favorite books that I've ever read. somehow. I don't understand it. I can't quite explain it. It's just like a really classic, good revenge story. But so when this came out, I was really excited about it because I'd grown to really love the character. And yeah, I mean, so I was really excited to see this come out, and it really didn't disappoint at all. Jonathan Lau and Andrew Dalhouse crushing the art. It's not it to me it's this really cool blend of classic sci-fi art where it's like kind of dark but then outwardly vibrant, to show sort of how deep in space they are, how we're nowhere near Earth. But then also Jonathan Lau, the way that his art is provides tons of texture, texture that I don't think you always get in sci-fi books. And so I've reviewed several issues of Space Ghost. So, you know, if you see any of those videos, I kind of say a similar thing in there. But so Space Ghost, you know, he comes across Jan and Jace, who actually they play a role in the DC series, but it's not as big of a role as they play in this series by far. He comes across Jan, Jace, and Blip when some pirates attack their parents' ship. And so now they team up with Space Ghost because they have nowhere else to go after the death of their father. And then each one of these issues is a standalone Space Ghost adventure, and then we get an overarching, you know, series behind it. And so this first arc, character introduction, we get a Zorak two-parter in this, because I believe, let me double check this, but yeah, so Space Ghost Volume 1 with Only Ghost Comfort Us. It contains Space Ghost 1 through 6. And so 1 and 2 and 3 are pretty standalone, whereas issues 4 and 5 are a two-part story with Zorak being the main villain. And if you know Space Ghost, you know Zorak. And if you don't, it's like a Space Ghost Joker. I mean, that's his main villain. At least I would say. And then we get in issue number 6, we get Moltar to kind of wrap up the volume. And it's just really great, really great space adventure fun. I mean, and it's David Pepos. He's the writer here, and it's action packed, but also, you know, he dips into, you know, each of the characters, and you can tell that David Pepos put just a ton of love and care into this because he knows these characters. I mean, he has researched them extensively. You know, presumably has, you know, watched that old cartoon. Now, to be fair, my only real experience with Space Ghost before the DC series was the Space Ghost Coast to Coast, you know, like talk show goofy thing, right? This is not that. But it's really good. It has not disappointed at all. And as you can tell, as you saw, I had the second arc of this earlier or later in the list, higher up on the list. So I will touch on that a bit more as we go along here. But that was number 7. So coming in at number 6 is World's Finest. Now, this arc is what they're calling the implosion, imp-shattering events of the World's Finest Annual 24 and number 25. So when this was solicited, I was actually pretty bummed out that they were doing this because Like I like the sort of goofiness that World's Finest um has put forth, but I'm really just not the biggest Batmite fan. Um, I like him in the old Batman and Robin cartoon, but I just haven't seen him translate into comics the way that the way that he impacts that show. And obviously, like I'm pretty sure he was in comics before he was in that show, but either way, um, I wasn't super excited about it. But then they went and delivered just a really good arc. I mean, we get it's pretty heavy on Jimmy Olsen, which is cool. I like seeing that. Um, it was the stakes felt high. It had tons of heroes involved, which was cool. It felt a little bit more like a Justice League book, to be honest, than it did just like a Batman and Superman one. Um, and yeah, it actually ended up being a lot of fun. I was a little surprised because, like I said, I wasn't too excited about it, but but I liked it. Yeah, it was pretty good. Not a whole lot more to say about that. It's the last arc that Dan Mora was on for World's Finest. Which that's always disappointing because he's incredible. Um, but so, but yeah, so World's Finest, the Implosion arc. Let's see what they actually named. I don't know what they named the. Um, Need that card stock one. What are we doing here? Trying to see what the name of the. It's just Volume 6. So if you're looking for it, it's Volume 6. Um, yeah, I mean you got all this stuff like Joker Might and Doom Might and all this stuff. So, and then we have Helen of Windhorn. So this book has been so good. Unfortunately, my shop didn't get in my copy of issue number 6, so I'm sitting here without an ending, even though the series ended in 24. I think it ended in November or maybe even October. I just haven't gotten this issue number 6, which is killing me. What happened with this one is I thought this looked cool when I originally saw that it was solicited, but I didn't, have room on my pull list at the time. So I ended up going in to pick up my other books and saw it sitting there, and it was very much an impulse buy. Um, but I was really glad that I got it. And then immediately after reading issue number 1, went and put it on my pull list. Um, so the writing by Tom King. It's a very Tom King book. It's There is just an absolute ton of writing in this book. It does feel a little more like prose with pictures, if that makes sense, rather than a comic itself. And truthfully, I think that's what kept me from rating this a little bit higher. Is that the you have to be like in a different state of mind to read this. It's so dense, and um it's not a problem if you're sort of prepared for that, but the the like if you're reading another comic and then you come across and then you pull this one up, and it's just like basically other comics could take you 5 or 10 minutes to read through an issue. This one's taking you 15, maybe even 20 minutes to read through. Which again, not an issue, just different from maybe what else is in your pile that particular day. So Bilquis Evely's art and Matt Lope's coloring, just there. I don't think there's been a single better book art wise this year. I mean, it's so detailed and intricate and like larger than life. It's truly just like I mean, you don't even have to read the book if you don't want. Just get the hardcover and just look at the pictures. Like, if you're not a Tom King fan, then that's an easy solution, because it, Bilquis Evely's art is easily worth the price of admission. I mean, there's beautiful landscapes. I mean, the characters. I mean, she has a very distinct style, so her characters look like the ones that you would see in Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, as well as some of her work in Detective Comics. But yeah, I mean, just phenomenal. I mean, I can't say enough good things about this. Like I said, I think what probably kept this from being my favorite book of the year. And again, it's not even just a criticism. It's just in terms of, I mean, I guess it is a criticism, but it's not that I really disliked how dense it was. It's more so just that it didn't feel like it was embracing the comic medium. There was still lots of narration and dialogue that was already being said with Evely's art that King didn't need to put in the narration boxes or in the speech bubbles. So again, that's I think a minor criticism, because it was still good enough that I didn't even really mind that much. But yeah, I mean, really, really fantastic. So let's see what's next on the list. We were at number 5. So number 4, we are back with Space Ghost. So part of the reason that I wanted to include this second arc of Space Ghost in my top 10 is because this issue here, issue number 7, is a Blip the Monkey focused issue. And so my first thought was like, okay, like this is gonna be goofy, like this is gonna be funny and fun, and that's cool. But this felt like this team hitting its stride in full force. Just because the action in it is so great, but also the meaning that David Pepose puts behind the you know, the meaning of being a part of a family that Blip has. It's really just it's really cool. Um, and so it has the Creature King, right? And and that's how this one starts. And then in addition to that, um, we get in the next issue, Space Ghost takes on Metalis, right? And to me, this is Metalis. Metalis is like Space Ghosts. I didn't want to call him Thanos, but he sort of has that like world conquering um, feel to him. But then also, I had David on the Monday Night Comics right before this came out. So I think it was on sort of the second episode, right? And he said that he was looking at Metalis as Space Ghost's Bane, right? That the only guy to defeat him and outsmart him, and so I think that's such a perfect comparison. It's cool to see Metalis here, but so I mean, we're only 2 issues into the second arc, but I'm already willing to put it at number 4 on my list because I really liked issues 1 through 6. I loved issues 7 and 8, and I can't wait for issue number 9. I mean, so issue number 9 is going to be that's going to be coming out in January, and it's part 2 of the Metalis 2-part story. The story is too big to put just in one issue. And David Pepose writes Metalis just in this really cool way. So yeah, so Space Ghost, the second arc here, starting with issue number 8. And so the cool thing is you don't really need a ton of background. If you wanted to just start at issue number 7 or start at issue number 8, really, you can. And I wouldn't recommend starting at issue number 9 just because it's part 2 of a 2-parter. But if you wanted to start at issue number 8, The background that you need is that there's Space Ghost, there's Jan, Jace, who are the kids, and there's Blip, the space monkey, and they are going across the galaxy fighting against RoboCorp, which is this big evil corporation, which is something I think everyone can relate to a little bit. So yeah, Space Ghost, the second arc here, number 4 already on my list, just because it's been that good so far. So now we are getting to the top 3. Number 3 on my list, you might recognize from one of my more recent videos, is Crocodile Black. So Crocodile Black is from Boom Studios. It's written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, who is, I wouldn't even say slowly, very quickly becoming one of my favorite writers. I mean, he wrote Superman, the War World saga, which I loved that story. I got those books from my library. I really want to get that big like compendium. It's not technically a compendium. It's just an like basically like an oversized trade. But really fantastic series there. But so he wrote this, and the artist on this, his name is Sam. The full name Somnath Pal, but he goes by Sam. And so he's from India, and this is his first like fully published comic. He's worked in animation for years. I interviewed him for the channel for my latest episode of Up and Coming Comic Artist. So make sure you check that out, because a really interesting guy to talk to. But we go through all of his, not all, but we go through a handful of his pieces that he did, some for Crocodile Black, some not. And it's really just this grotesque body horror, like out of this world stuff, right? And so he does just such a good job with that. And it's really crazy, because I picked I read this book with my my preview copies from Boom Studios, and I'm like, oh, this looks pretty good. And then the art just completely blew me away. And it's really just a story about this guy that during the pandemic kind of just loses it. He was already mentally unstable, but then this sort of just sets off a chain of events. And I don't want to give any more away than that, because it's the trade's out. I believe, I don't know if the hardcover's out or not. But the trade's out. I don't think they have a hardcover yet. But so it's got just it's such a good horror book. It's got just the things that the main character's name is Danny, and the things that he sees that aren't actually there are just, Sam just goes crazy. You've watched the interview video to see some of the stuff that he puts in this book. It's truly incredible. But then on top of that, the cohesion from the creative team is I don't think I've ever seen a creative team so in sync with each other on a book than this. Because I mean, from Philip Kennedy Johnson's writing on this is just, he keeps it simple. He doesn't over explain, he doesn't over narrate. He knows when to just let the art talk, which I think is so important with a comic. And obviously I've already spoken to Sam's ability. Patricio DePecci, he also does the colors on, I believe, Void Rivals. And then he does, and then Becca Carey's letters. So her letters are they just fit the story so well. And so it's really just, incredible to read. And Patricio's colors, they just fit Sam's art style so well. It's fantastic. I couldn't recommend this one enough. I mean, this easily could have been number one on the list. Uh, it was such a close call with these top three that it was such a good such a good series there. Number two is the second story arc of Void Rivals. Now, one thing that I want to point out, and we will do a little hunting here, is that so Patricio DePecci did coloring for that. I'll go to Russ Wooten's page because I know he did Transformers. We have Void Rivals here at number 2, and Transformers is not number 1. So how did Transformers not get to the top of this list? And so I think that the answer to that is it's kind of based on release date, right? So if you look at the first arc of Transformers, most of it takes place. I mean, the first 3-ish of the 6 issues, half of it takes place in 2023. So I did really like what followed, but just the way that it fell meant that I couldn't quite figure out how to fit it into the top 10. That being said, I think that it's a fantastic series and it's extremely well done. But just that the way that it was released didn't quite work out for me. This latest arc, truthfully, like it's been good, but it does, I don't feel, has held up to the quality of some of these other books. And on top of that, the last 2 issues of Transformers, or I guess not the last 2, but the 2 before that, were the Starscream story, which was cool, but not anything that like blew me away. I really liked it, but it's not something that I felt needed to be in the top 10. But anyway, Void Rivals. So Void Rivals, it's funny because I actually rated this issue number 7 like 3.5 stars or something, which doesn't feel like the second best book of the year quality. But I'm looking at the whole arc, right? And so this issue, a little slow, but then we get into issue number 8, which I thought was fantastic. 4.5 stars there. We actually get to see Durak and Salila face off against Proximus. And I think that Kirkman is building up Proximus to be just this menacing dude. And I love this so much because he has, I mean, he kind of looks like Darth Vader a little bit, honestly, but he has this same menacing feel that Darth Vader has. And he has this mystery surrounding him, just like Darth Vader does. And we all know that Darth Vader is the greatest villain of all time. So if you're like Darth Vader, then you're probably a good villain. Not to mention the fact that the biggest reveal, I don't even remember which issue it was. I don't remember if it was issue 9 or 10 or what. But if you don't want to hear any spoilers for this series, then mute for a second. But my jaw had just about hit the floor when I believe it was Springer told Salila, like, "Oh, you look at that Energon port on your head," and I was like, the Energon port, and then I was just, my mind was blown, completely blown. I want this series to go on for such a long time because I think that Kirkman just has such good plans for it. I hope that it continues to sell well, and I hope that we get more and more of it. It's this second arc. If you felt that the first arc was slow, I wouldn't blame you. I enjoyed it, and um, I also felt that it was a little slow, but just the fire that gets lit underneath this second arc is unreal. And so like now it's like one of my most anticipated reads. So Void Rivals, that second arc, if you gave up after the first, jump back into it, please, because it's just so quality. It's so good. I am running a little short on time, but we got to get to number one. And number one, as seen on my video or contribution to the video on Near Mint Condition, is The Displaced. So I loved this book. The story is about the city of Oshawa, Ontario, and how one day it just vanished off the face of the earth. Now, there were a few folks that are from Oshawa, lived in Oshawa, but were not in Oshawa at the time of its disappearance. And so they are now without their family and friends. And then the rest of the outside world starts to forget who these people are. This very much felt like, I mean, even the cover reminds me of the Twilight Zone a bit, the spirals and stuff. This felt like an episode of the Twilight Zone. It was just so great, and even more so, like the thrill of this happening was incredible. But on top of that, Ed Brisson then takes these characters and shows you, like, look at how each of these characters reacts to this situation, right? And I think to me that was the most interesting part. You see some people, jump immediately to like lawlessness, like if people all of a sudden started forgetting who you were the moment that you walked out of a room, so you could walk out of a room and come back and it's like the first time you met them, they start using it to rob people. Okay. Like it shows who they are. They were bad people to begin with. If that's the first thing that they would do. And then there's other people that are just so focused on keeping the group together and trying to figure this out and all that. At one point, a character walks off and is just like, I'm going to go try to find my family. And if I don't make it, then, it's not worth it because I don't have my family anyway. Just a really beautiful story. I really liked Luca Castellanguida's art. It's truly, it's just a really, really nice. I don't want to call it a cartoony style. It's not, hyper realistic, but it has that almost like a Chris Samney style, thick outline. So you like still get the feel that you're reading a comic, right? But it doesn't look like it's like a cartoon for kids, if that makes sense. D. Cuniff on colors, fantastic job. Really, really enjoyed his work there. And then the very best letterer in the business, Hassan Otsmane Elhau, just crushing it on this book. One other thing real quick that I wanted to jump back to, that I just realized I forgot to mention, on Space Ghost, both volumes 1 and 2, Taylor Esposito on those letters. That's a letterer that you need to watch out for. He is unreal, and just his attention to detail on these letters is incredible, especially if you look at issues number 4 and 5 of Space Ghost, the Zorak two-parter. His letters for Zorak are perfection. Those are perfect letters, and he's one of my favorite letterers. He's like, at this point, like, I think Hassan Otsmane Elhau might be my favorite letterer in the business right now, but like at this point, it's getting close to him being 1A and Esposito being 1B, just because I can't really decide, who's the best. But so the Displaced was just, it was fantastic. The trade just recently came out a couple weeks ago. It's awesome. I really enjoyed the read. I mean, Ed Brisson just he puts together just such a nice story here. I loved every issue of it, and just had so much fun reading it. So those are my top 10 of 2024, and so that took the full hour because I did not get a chance to talk about what I read in the past week. But that's okay because we can save that for next week, especially because I don't have any pulls that came out or I don't have any pulls for January 1st, except I might end up getting Absolute Superman #3. So apart from that, I believe that's all I really have. I'd like to thank everyone for watching, and make sure that you like this video. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Both of those things are just such huge helps. I would love to. I'm at 400 some subscribers now. I would love to hit 500. I think that'd be really great. And check out my other videos. Like I mentioned, I have interviews with Sam from Crocodile Black. I mean, if you look at my top 10 list, there's a handful there, right? I have, like I said, I have Sam from Crocodile Black. I have a video featuring him. I have an interview with Dan Waters from Nightwing. So make sure you check that out. If you look at Monday Night Comics #2, you'll see that I had David Pepose on as a guest, talk about Space Ghost. So, make sure you check those out. It's greatly appreciated. And thanks for everyone for watching.